Hey everyone, it's Joe Waxman, and this morning I want to look at the chart of British PM in the 80s, Margaret Thatcher. Actually, late 70s, early 80s. She was prime minister for 3 terms. Share my screen. So anyway, Margaret Thatcher. Let me pull up the Wikipedia because I just want to establish basis for her first. She was the first British prime minister, female. So from 1979 to 1990, she's prime minister. 3 terms she served. First female British prime minister and longest serving British prime minister of the 20th century. And her main contribution was what came to be known as Thatcherism. Just want to pull this up because it's kind of important to understand. It's conservative ideology. Basically, she was, I think, often described as a classical liberal, which means a kind of like what we call libertarian today. Small government, cutting the red tape, systematic and decisive rejection, reversal of post-war consensus, which was much more towards socialism, welfare state, and all that. She's very against socialism. Keynesian means central control of the money supply, Federal Reserve, all that, welfare state. There were exceptions, obviously, but that was the main thing. And then she had read, the classical libertarian ideology from Hayek to Milton Friedman, things like that. Anyway, let's go back here. She was known as the Iron Lady. So, I mean, I don't find her to be particularly interesting, but the astrology still is compelling. Her being the first female British prime minister, also her being known as the Iron Lady, in reference to her stance on Russia. I guess the association, just a nickname that came out of they're the Iron Curtain. They were known as the Iron Curtain, and she criticized them, their expansionist hopes, and she became known as the Iron Lady. And it's very evident if you look at Saturn conjunct the Ascendant here in Scorpio. That's pretty daunting. By sign, Saturn is not great in Scorpio, but being conjunct the Ascendant, it's very prominent, very strong. Right. But anyway, so her sun is in Libra. Not the best sun sign, not the most dignified. It's conjunct Mercury, so she's very intellectual. And it's conjunct the 12th house cusp quadrant, and it's in the 12th whole sign house. So this is a very 12th house sun in Mercury, which is interesting because you actually see this in politics a lot. You see it in politics and actors and musicians for some reason. The 12th house for the arts is great. But what's interesting is the 12th house for politicians. And what I think it has to do with is moving behind the scenes. Like really in politics, you have to be connected. You have to have inside support from the powers that be. You have to be willing to take orders from the more powerful, secret, hidden players that reside in our society. That's all 12th house, without having that support from the inside, from the secret layers of society, you're not going to be elected PM or president or any high office. They'll just take you down. So you have to understand, you have to get into that secret underbelly. That's the way I see it. Also, 12th house being the house of alter egos, politicians need an alter ego. They're kind of actors and actresses. I mean, that's very prominent. Of course, we don't want to see somebody just blatantly lying to our face and being a good actor, fooling people, because that's what a good actor does. They fool people, and people are like, no, they're telling the truth. No, they're just acting. To be honest, they're lying to you, and they're good actors. So, you know, I'm just trying to be fair and neutral. I don't love her. I don't hate her. Some of her stances, I tend to be more conservative, politically myself, but that's neither here nor there. It's not really about that. This is just about understanding who she was and her through astrology. Yeah. So Sun is ruling the 10th whole sign house, and it's in the 12th. So also connection of foreign lands, foreign diplomacy, ability to relate to, foreign countries. That's also pretty important. Mercury is ruling the MC and 11th whole sign house, as well as the 8th house. 8th and 12th is actually not bad because these are both water houses originally, and here the difficulties from the 8th house, the crisis, the death, is going into the 12th house where it can sort of just be dissolved. It's like good things coming from bad things. That's the way it works. It's like something bad will happen, then it turns out to be good, or at least not very problematic. Yeah, I mean, Mercury is combust, but that's generally not so bad with Mercury, not as bad as it is with Venus and other planets. So yeah. Mars is also in Libra, about 10 degrees from the sun. It's probably more in the 11th house, but still 12th house, whole sign house. And Mars is not good in Libra. It is in detriment because it rules Aries. But it is good for the sun somewhat. It's good for the sun. It's not so great for Mars to be too close to the sun. But this is a good birth, I think. And it should probably, ideally, it would give her son a lot more drive, will, and initiative force, because the sun is exalted in Mars' sign of Aries, and because it needs that, because sun in Libra can be a pushover, wishy-washy, indecisive, people-pleasing, or outright nasty and crude and rude. But generally, the women, I don't want to make a hard dogma around this, but women being, well, I'll put it this way, more feminine types will generally be on the side of with Sun in Libra, on the people pleasing, wishy-washy, indecisive, weak-willed kind of side of things. Whereas the more masculine type people with Sun in Libra tend to become quite crude and aggressive and nasty. I don't know that she was either of those, and maybe I think somewhat this Mars helps a lot. Certainly, Saturn on the Ascendant really helps tremendous amount for that. And Libra is actually good for Saturn. So, I mean, these are different points. There's no real connection here by aspect, but a strong Saturnian type will benefit from Libran energy because Saturn is exalted in Libra. So she studied science, she studied chemistry, and then she studied law. So Libra is very much related to law, and so is Saturn. So already we can see a connection there. Saturn in Scorpio on the ascendant, that's very, very tough, because Scorpio is, well, Scorpio loves power and control, and resources, shared resources and things like that. And a lot of times Scorpios will rise to positions of power. And Saturn also is very, structured, disciplined, commanding respect and authority. It has an air of authority already. It's very much about leadership from a not like Aries type leadership, where Aries is all about like well, there's different types of leaders. Aries leadership is very self-centered. It's almost like a dictator or tyrant. Saturnian leadership is really about the rule of law, and not going it alone, but considering the people, because that's Saturn is very mature and it has to take the people into account. Whereas something like Mars and Aries is very much just, about the self rule and ruling over others in a self kind of, like I said, dictatorial. The sun is also leadership, obviously. And also fame and, attention, gaining the spotlight, more like a king or queen. Moon is conjunct Neptune in Leo. This is actually a very creative combination. Neptune is, fantasy, delusion, arts, creativity, spirit, imagination, acting, dancing, film, cinema. Conjunct the moon shows that in this position shows that she could be an actress. Like, it wasn't all just like, it's not all just about being responsible and good leadership. Like, you have to go get up on, I'm not trying to make excuses, because I don't think this is very good for a politician, but the ability to get up there and perform in front of people, that's how you get elected. So I mean, that having that ability certainly helps her out a lot, but not so great from the receiving end, where you have to decide if she's telling the truth or not. In other words, Neptune is very much an actor or actress, right? So she could easily just get up there and lie about stuff and put on a show. And that's not something we really want to see. But it is very prominent, high in the sky, and indicates a rise to recognition. It is the 10th whole sign house, although 9th quadrant technically, but yeah, very prominent, very high in the sky. Actually, the highest point in the sky would be 15 degrees Leo, because you just square the ascendant. Yeah. And then she's got this really interesting axis here, which I think is very prominent. It's the Pluto in Cancer in the 8th quadrant, but 9th whole sign house, directly opposite Jupiter in Capricorn. And this is central to who and what she was. Being that Pluto in Cancer in the 9th house represents, well, it's a generational planet, Pluto in Cancer. Pluto in Cancer generation really challenged the whole role of females in society, because Cancer relates to woman. And Pluto represents a deep karmic backlog or wound. Like it's one of the most, it's central to somebody's karma in this life, what they're here to achieve. So being in the 9th house, this has to do with her belief about her role as a woman in society, opposite Jupiter in Capricorn. And this is, if you're taking into account evolution, evolutionary astrology theory, which I think is pretty accurate. You look to the house opposite of Pluto, especially for its resolution, and here it just couldn't be any more clear. Jupiter in Capricorn, in the second quadrant, third house, third whole sign house. That her role is to rise up in the material realm, Capricorn. Jupiter being like this big, speaker, teacher, not teacher in a very literal sense, but Jupiter is, well, law, teacher, guru, but just big success. Jupiter is often associated with success. So success in the material world, as a speaker and communicator, second and third house, right? Intellect. Also, Capricorn can relate to science, right? Third house in the first house, third lord in the first house. Scorpio also is very scientific in that it digs deep and is great at research. But this here is very, I mean, she was first female prime minister. So that we could see that Jupiter, success in the Capricornian material realm. Capricorn wants to climb to the top. Cancer, woman, Pluto, the deep need. And there were doubts, like she said, oh, the men in parliament or whatever, I'm not super familiar with British government structure, but she said that the men are too prejudiced. She would never be prime minister in her lifetime. But she did. She gradually rose through the ranks of government, obtaining different positions and losing. She lost several elections in different positions. I'm not going to detail all of them because there was a lot. But she gradually rose and rose and rose until she became prime minister for 3 terms and did quite well. There was, it wasn't perfect, but overall did quite well. There were some criticisms, but I mean, she did well enough to be elected 3 times, and as long as serving prime minister thus far. South node in Aquarius. It's very scientific, but also this is the 4th whole sign house. So 3rd and 4th in the 1st. So 4th for politics. South node in the 4th whole sign house. Politics, science, Aquarius. Politics because 4th house represents homeland, like not just your physical home, but your homeland. So it extends beyond the house that you live in. It's also homeland and homeland. So this is very prominent for a politician, 4th lord in the 1st house, right? That's very, very telling. And if we take Jupiter to be the 4th lord, because it's the IC is here, then 4th lord is in 2nd quadrant, 3rd whole sign. So then speaking, Jupiter in the 2nd house is going to be a speaker, a singer, an actor, or a teacher, or a speaker, public speaker, right? Generally speaking. Capricorn, probably not a singer because Jupiter is not very dignified in Capricorn, but like I said before, definitely that could be a public speaker, somebody who wants to climb the ladder, the material ladder to high ranks. Let's see here. Mercury is opposite Chiron. So her challenge is to understand intellectually the plight of the social outcasts, the underdogs, the poor, the you know, because she's very removed, as is everyone, from uh, government positions. Generally, coming from more affluent families, have more opportunities. Sorry, my Zoom cut out. I hope it's continuing. Yeah, so what I was saying is that her this is something that she needs to understand intellectually, because Mercury's opposite Chiron. So this Chiron in Aries in the sixth house is representing the underdogs, the social underclass, and just all the people who might need help, the poor, the disabled, things of that nature. There's also a scientific element as well, but I think how to, because her conservatism was opposed to the welfare state, so then how to understand and properly take care of the people who were less successful in society. All right, North Node in Leo, in 10th whole sign house, 9th quadrant. So higher studies and career success, recognition, fame, things of that nature. Venus and Sagittarius. Venus is ruling 12th and 7th. So that's, that's very, when you take this to be the first house, then 7th and the first is really attracting others to you, bringing in a lot of attention towards yourself, because it's the house of others. And also foreign lands, foreigners, creativity, things of that nature are also coming to her. I think it's just generally helpful. I don't think it's the most critical of planets in her chart. It's generally a positive one because it's kind of angular. It's in the first quadrant, second whole sign. So again, if you take it to be second whole sign, then relating to speaking, values, these are both good for money. But Jupiter and Capricorn, not so good, but Jupiter still, regardless. Venus and Sag, not bad. Our planets are not very dignified. Saturn is the best. Venus second, according to this scoring. Anyway, let's look at. Let me pull up the nodes, planetary nodes. We can see that south node of Venus is conjunct Saturn, and I think this probably helps Saturn somewhat because Saturn likes Venus. It's exalted in Libra, so this is probably adding a certain amount of dignity, hidden kind of dignity to her Saturn, and therefore to her ascendant in her political career. South node of Mars a little further away. That's not bad because Mars is exalted in Scorpio, but it's not so prominent. Let's see what's really prominent here. Jupiter is conjuncting the conjunction of south node of Saturn and south node of Pluto in Capricorn. So that shows that she's very, in a Jupiterian way, her philosophy, her belief, her faith. Although I forgot to mention, not religious, but definitely in touch with the deeper movement of society in its materialistic aims and goals, or at least what it has been pursuing in a way, because society, the south node of Saturn conjunct Pluto in Capricorn is very, very heavy. very serious and very materialistic, all about the development of a material world. And her Jupiter being quite close to that shows that she is naturally in tune with that. Like, it's no mystery to her. It's not foreign to her at all. She understands it. She knows how to work within the Capricornian structure to bring in this feminine female element, which she is female, right? And so that resolving this Pluto means pushing forward the North Node of Pluto agenda here. Also Jupiter, which Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So by resolving this Pluto ninth house and overcoming this deeply painful psychological wound about being a woman in society that hasn't at that time hasn't broken through the barrier of having a woman be prime minister. She had to break through barriers, right? And so this is very helpful here. Her Pluto being pretty closely conjunct North Node of Pluto, North Node of Jupiter, showing that this is the direction that society needs to go in. Embracing women in leadership roles, feminine archetype of caring and nourishing, nurturing, that sort of thing. Let's see what else. The North Node is pretty close to the North Node of Saturn, the 29 degrees Cancer. So again, very similar theme there, even though it's out of sign, it's still quite, prominent. Mars is conjunct the North Node of Mercury. Probably makes it just a bit more intellectual. And she was very intellectual, but you can see that here as well with Sun and Mercury. Chiron is conjunct its own South Node. So they're so she is quite in tune with the underclass struggles to a degree. If her Chiron's conjunct the South Node, it shows a familiarity there, but still there's the issue of integrating it with her intellect, how to understand it, how to hold it, and how to help the best way possible without resorting to the welfare state, which I would tend to agree with. There are better ways to help poor people than just giving out free money. So yeah, that's it for that. Let me pull up the Draconic. What's shocking is that the planet of shocks is right on the Ascendant as well, or right in the first house, 5 degrees from the Ascendant. Uranus in Scorpio. Uranus is considered exalted in Scorpio, and Uranus is a planet of extreme rebellion and independence, independent thinking. Because it's Draconic, it's not going to come out as much. She's not going to be like James Dean, like James Dean had, Uranus on the Ascendant. I do as well, and I'm ridiculously rebellious, always have been. But this does show a strong independence, an ability to think for herself, an ability to be quite radical in a sense that she can go her own way, and that's very prominent. That's very strong, especially with Saturn here. Saturn and Uranus together rule Aquarius, so this is giving her this Scorpionic Aquarian kind of vibe, combination of those two things. That's nice. Uranus is also brilliant, so probably gives her, helps her have big ideas. Pluto and Pisces. I didn't even talk about Uranus and Pisces, but it's not even aspected on the natal chart. These aspects are to the Draconic. natally, it's in the fourth quadrant, fifth whole sign. Just, you know, generally good. Very independent upbringing, I would say. Maybe her parents gave her a very big, broad, open view of life. Pisces here suggests that if we take this to be the fourth, well, it's fourth quadrant, fifth whole sign house. Interesting. I don't know, like issue could be deep wounds relating to, I mean, well, fourth house relating to politics. So in that regard, that kind of makes sense. Political issues, but it's not too close to any planets, so I'm going to move on. Kyron Moon is conjunct by 1 degree. So this does show concern for the underclass, the underprivileged section of society. It also shows very competitive nature, Moon and, well, not so much Neptune in Aries, but Moon in Aries. Competitive and hardworking and critical mindedness. Yeah. Mars and Sun and Mercury are in Gemini. Moving into the 8th house, I guess Mars you could consider in the 7th house, 7th, 8th. But 8th house, power, control, crisis, death, rebirth, shared resources. It's more scorpionic themes for her, research. So yeah, definitely a tough lady. 8th house definitely brings in that Scorpio vibe, makes a person tough, deep thinking, could bring a lot of hardship and difficulty. That's where I have my sun. All right, Ascendant and Saturn conjunct Pluto in Cancer by 1 and 2 degrees, respectively, shows that this is a very important area for her. This Pluto, resolving this Pluto in Cancer in the 9th house, this belief that about being a woman in society and how that you know, being opposite Jupiter and Capricorn, how to resolve that with you know, trying to climb up the political chain to become prime minister, and she did. You know, it was her. It's from reading this chart, it seems very obvious that was her goal, that was her task in life, that was her big challenge, and she accomplished that. So karmically, that she lived out her destiny to the fullest. Venus conjunct the North Node in Leo. Venus at 0 degrees Leo. This, I think, is just more of the same theme, because Moon, Neptune, and Uranus are all feminine. I mean, sometimes Neptune is considered masculine, but I think energetically it's feminine. And being in Leo, 10th whole sign house, shows that you know, she's bringing these feminine qualities to a prominent position, to the public realm. And yeah, it's also dispositing her sun, so the energy is going up here. Yeah. Jupiter and Virgo, both Jupiters are not very well dignified at all. But this Jupiter is in the 10th whole sign house, boosting her career again. Jupiter and Virgo can be very intellectual, both earth signs actually trine each other, both Jupiters. I guess that means the whole thing is trine, her draconic and let's see. Yeah, pretty much. Everything's trying each other in the draconic. That's probably quite good. I mean, she had an incredibly successful career, so Anyway, that's Margaret Thatcher, lover, hater, whatever. Don't forget to hit the like button, guys. Subscribe if you haven't. Share it if you liked it. Hit me up. Book a reading with me. My website is macroastrology.com, or email me at macrogoalmachine@yahoo.com and leave a comment if you like. All right, thanks. Bye.